Hi, this is Jennifer Roberts with a tutorial on the basics of adding FMOD sound to aircraft in X-Plane 11. This video was recorded using X-Plane 1101. We need to gather all the resources we'll need to create a sample project. First off, if you haven't already, you'll want to download the FMOD version 108 from fmod.com. When I recorded this video, version 109 was the latest, so you'll need to click on this link down here to access older versions. The FMOD SDK that currently ships with X-Plane 11 uses version 108, so any newer versions are not compatible. Find version 108.18 for your operating system in this list here. Next, you may want to familiarize yourself with FMOD basics through their tutorials and documentation, which you can find here. You'll also want to be familiar with two resources on the X-Plane developer site. You'll want to know the sound file format specification, as well as the Using FMOD with X-Plane article. The FMOD project template link is included in this article. You will need to use this link to download a new starter project for each separate aircraft. You cannot reuse the same project template. You also cannot make a starter project by hand, as our template includes the bus structure that X-Plane expects. Once the project is downloaded, unzip the file, open the folder, and double-click on this FS Pro file here to open the template in FMOD. Then, to make sure that everything's working correctly, you can go to Window, Mixer, and if you see all these buses here, you'll know that we're good. So we'll close that for now. Now I'm going to walk through a quick, simple example of attaching an engine sound to an aircraft. The first thing we're going to do is add an event. An event is anything that will make a sound in X-Plane. So right-click in this Events column and pick New Event. You can rename this event whatever you want, such as Engine. And now notice it has a warning over here to the right because we haven't assigned it yet. So we'll right-click and pick Assign to Bank, then pick Master Bank. For advanced projects, you can also use additional banks by putting them in the FMOD folder, but it's not necessary at all, so we'll just stick with the Master Bank. Next, click on the plus sign here and add a new parameter. Parameters allow X-Plane's internal data, via data refs, to control all kinds of aspects of the sound. In our example, I'm using this engine rotation speed data ref, which will use the speed of the engine to control the pitch. I'm also using an asterisk instead of a number because it's a wildcard that lets the event be generic and attached to all engines. I'll leave the minimum at 0 and set the maximum to, say, 300. Now we want to right-click here and pick Add Single Sound. And we want this sound to span the entire event range, so I'm going to drag this blue box out to fill this whole space. This line up here represents the speed of the engine. As this moves left or right, the engine is changing speed, say from 0 here to about 50 to 100 radians. So now let's add a sound file. I'm using one of X-Plane's default sound files just for the purposes of this example, but as we update the fleet with FMOD, we'll record custom sounds in real aircraft to use. We can simply drag and drop our file down here into the window. Make sure to click this button to loop the sound because we want the sound to play as long as the engine is running. If we come up here and listen to the track now, though, Even as we adjust the RPMs, there's no change to the sound. Now I'll come down here and right-click on this pitch icon and pick Add Modulation, and then Auto Pitch. Here at Root Pitch, you can drag this slider around, or you can manually enter a number here for the base at which the sound was recorded. Now as I drag this slider around, we can hear a change in the sound. X-Plane is going to be controlling this slider once the sim is running with this sound, so as the speed changes, we'll get this modulation automatically. To finish our event, we need to set what sound bus this will be played on. Go to Window, Mixer Routing, you can see Engine here, right-click on Engine, and go Reroute into Master, Exterior Processed, Aircraft. This bus is the common destination for all sound that is outside of the aircraft and needs to be muted by signal processing when the pilot or listener is inside the cockpit. Now let's set up a snapshot by going to Window, Mixer, and going to this Snapshot tab. Right-click for New Overriding Snapshot, and then rename this whatever you'd like. Now we can change the view by clicking on these different buttons here. And just like before in this view, we can click on this plus tab to add a parameter. This time we'll be using the data ref for how much the door is open. This time our minimum is 0 and our maximum is 1 for the door fully open or fully shut, and of course all the stages in between. Click these vertical lines again to show the mixer, and note that you can mouse over the groups to see the full name, such as this one, which is the exterior processed. Come down here to the handle, right-click on it, and click Scope In. Now this snapshot will be affecting something on the exterior bus, and if you recall earlier, we set up our engine event on the exterior bus. Let's go back to the other view, and now we see 2 tracks here. Come down here, right-click and select Scope In. Right-click again for Add Automation. Now we're going to click in the track up here to add the sound muffling. The left end of this line represents the closed door, so we need a lot of muffling. So I'm going to drag this down here. And then this right side over here is the sound with the door open. So we want a lot more of the original sound to come through and no muffling. So I'm going to drag that up quite a bit. The actual numbers don't really matter here in this case. But now let's test this out and make sure it works. So first we're going to save our project. And then we're going to export the GUIDs. We'll go to File, Export GUIDs. And finally we need to build the master bank. Go to File, Build. Now if we go look in our template project folder, there's a build folder and a bunch of other folders, but we're interested in this build folder. Inside here is the GUIDs.txt file that we need. If we take a peek at this file, we see all of our buses, as well as our event, and the snapshot, as well as the bank we just created. Now let's go to the X-Plane folder and find the aircraft that we're attaching these sounds to. Again, I'm going to use a default aircraft as an example. Here we're going to add a new FMOD folder, and then we're going to paste that GUIDs file in here. We also need the master bank file from our project's build folder. So come back here and go into this desktop folder and copy just the masterbank.bank file. We don't need this other file. Finally, we need an Smd file. This file tells Xplane where the sounds are attached and when to start and stop them. You will need to create this file by hand following the guidelines in the sound file format spec. I have a very basic sound file created to use for just this example. So we have one attachment in here for the snapshot we made, and two for the event because we need one for each engine. It's important to note here that if you use folders in FMOD to help organize your project, FMOD will create the GUIDs file with the full path name, and you'll need to use that full path name to create your sound file in your event names and snapshot names. So when you build your sound file, you need to make sure the name portion here is the exact same match for the aircraft name. So I'll copy this into here. We go back and check out our Baron folder. You can see the aircraft name is Baron_58. So that's what matches here exactly, Baron_58.smd. Now we'll open up Xplane and test out all our work. Here we are in Xplane. I've gone ahead and bypassed all the loading screens and loaded up our Baron 58 with our new sounds. Let's check it out. So let's check that our door open snapshot works. We'll open the door, and we can indeed hear a difference. So that shows us that we've done that correctly. And as I rev the engine, you can hear the sound change as well. Well, that wraps up our tutorial on adding FMOD to aircraft in Xplane 11. Be sure to check out the FMOD documentation as well as the 2 documents on the Xplane developer site if you have any more questions. Thanks, and see you next time.